The Galactic Council's emergency meeting was interrupted by the sound of Admiral Zorf slamming his tentacles against the hovering crystal table. These hydro weapons the humans have developed are the most terrifying arsenal in the known universe. He gurgled, his respiratory sacs inflating with panic. Our intelligence suggests they've stockpiled billions of these containers. High Commander Blixnar, representative of the silicon-based Krylosians, vibrated nervously. Our simulations indicate that if even 1% of Earth's hydro weapons were deployed simultaneously, it could destabilize entire planetary ecosystems. The council chamber erupted in panicked clicks, whistles, and electromagnetic discharges as the representatives of 247 spacefaring civilizations contemplated their imminent doom. Ambassador Cathrak, a gaseous entity contained in a hovering orb, pulsed red with concern. Perhaps we should send a stealth reconnaissance team to investigate more closely? We need to understand what we're dealing with. 3 solar cycles later, the stealth team's cloaked ship hovered over a massive human facility labeled Costco. Their mission: obtain samples of the dreaded hydro weapons for analysis. By the quasars, whispered Lieutenant Plink, as they watched humans casually loading cases of cylindrical hydro weapons into their primitive wheeled transport vehicles. They're not even wearing hazmat protection. Captain Zayex's compound eyes widened. Look at that human offspring. It's crying for a hydro weapon. These creatures are more savage than we thought. The team successfully teleported several samples labeled Liquid Death Mountain Water and LaCroix back to their ship and set course for the Galactic Council headquarters. The Council's chief scientist, Dr. Quark, approached the podium, looking visibly confused. His antennae were twisted in what the Council recognized as the universal sign for scientific bafflement. Esteemed colleagues, Quark began. After extensive analysis, I must report that these so-called hydro weapons are simply dihydrogen monoxide in various containers. Silence fell over the chamber. You mean water? Asked Admiral Zorf. Yes, just water, sometimes with bubbles, sometimes with a hint of fruit essence that's so subtle it's practically homeopathic. The silence deepened. But our surveillance clearly shows humans acting bizarrely after consuming these substances, protested Commander Blixnar. They become energetic, talkative, and sometimes engage in elaborate mating rituals. Dr. Quark shook his head. That's just how humans are. They're extremely suggestible. Their bizarre behavior seems to be a placebo effect combined with their innate weirdness. They literally convince themselves that drinking different brands of water gives them different personalities. But the marketing, insisted Cathrak. One brand is called Liquid Death. Another promises to transform consumers into something called an influencer. Yes, sighed Dr. Quark. It appears humans will pay 2,000% more for water if the container has nice colors or threatening typography. Meanwhile, at Galactic Council headquarters cafeteria, a janitor accidentally left the confiscated hydro weapons on a dining table. Gleep, an intern from accounting, stared at the shiny can of Monster Hydro. His species absorbed nutrients through their skin, so drinking was an alien concept to him. I wonder what it feels like to drink, Gleep mused. Curiosity overwhelming him, he poured the liquid over his absorption membrane. 30 minutes later, Gleep was zooming around the office at unprecedented speeds, reorganizing the entire filing system and talking so fast that his translator couldn't keep up. Guys, Thaya stuff is amazing, he screeched. I can taste colors and see sounds. I've just calculated pi to 80 million digits in my head. I think I'm evolving. By the end of the workday, half the headquarters staff had tried various hydro weapons. The methane breathers were doing backflips after sampling Red Bull. The silicon-based life forms had developed temporary telepathy from 5-hour energy, and the crystallines had grown additional facets after consuming Mountain Dew. The council reconvened in an emergency session, where most representatives were either vibrating uncontrollably, speaking at 4 times normal speed, or experiencing what humans call a sugar crash. Admiral Zorf, who had personally consumed 17 espresso shots, was bouncing off the walls literally, as his species could stick to surfaces. "New proposal," he shouted while clinging to the ceiling. "We immediately begin trade negotiations with Earth for all available hydro weapons." "Seconded," came the unanimous, over-caffeinated response. 1 Earth year later, humans were confused but delighted when alien trade ships began offering advanced technology in exchange for pallets of LaCroix, Red Bull, and Gatorade. NASA scientists were particularly baffled when the Arcturian ambassador handed over the secrets of faster-than-light travel in exchange for a 24-pack of Diet Coke and what they called that brown nectar of the gods, chocolate milk. Earth quickly became the wealthiest planet in the galaxy, trading what was essentially flavored water for revolutionary technology. Meanwhile, in a secret chamber of the Galactic Council, Admiral Zorf addressed his fellow leaders. "The humans must never know that their beverages interact with our alien biochemistry to produce euphoric effects 10,000 times stronger than any known recreational substance in the galaxy," he said, his tentacles trembling slightly from withdrawal. "Agreed," said High Commander Blixnar, who was currently wearing sunglasses indoors to deal with his Gatorade hangover. "If they discover the truth, they'll raise the prices." Ambassador Kathrak pulsed weakly in his containment orb. "Worth it," he whispered, still coming down from what humans called a monster energy crash. And so, the galaxy's most advanced civilizations became hopelessly addicted to Earth's most mundane beverages, while humans remained blissfully unaware that their hydro weapons had conquered the stars. The Galactic Trade Summit was proceeding smoothly until human ambassador Dave Johnson casually mentioned his weekend plans. "Yeah, after this, I'm hosting a little party. Got a new cocktail recipe I want to try. Red Bull and vodka with a splash of Monster Energy and crushed Mentos." The alien delegates froze in unified horror. Ambassador Xylop's exoskeleton turned completely transparent, a sign of extreme distress in Beetletonians. You mix the hydro weapons?" stammered Supreme Chancellor Vorblax, his 7 eye stalks retracting into his skull for protection. Dave shrugged. "Sure. College students do it all the time. My daughter makes these things called TikTok T-bombs, where she combines like 8 different energy drinks with boba pearls." The room erupted in pandemonium. 3 delegates fainted, 1 molted prematurely, another achieved spontaneous mitosis from stress. "Emergency session," bellowed Grand Admiral Zorf, now sporting a Red Bull gives you wings tattoo and speaking at 3 times normal speed. "The humans have developed fusion technology for hydro weapons." Dr. Quark, now the head of the newly established Department of Terrestrial Beverage Research, projected a hologram showing a human bartender mixing various liquids. "Our operatives have discovered establishments called bars and clubs where humans gather to consume these. These combinations," Quark explained, his voice quivering. "They call them cocktails, mixers, and most terrifyingly, Long Island iced teas." "What's in this Long Island iced tea?" asked Kathrak, now permanently dyed blue from excessive Gatorade consumption. Dr. Quark's assistant pulled up the recipe and read it aloud. With each ingredient, gasps grew louder until the council chamber resembled a vacuum chamber breach. "And they add something called cola at the end," the assistant concluded. "By the cosmic eggs of Xanthor," whispered Blixnar. "It's a suicide mission in a glass." "Proposal," said Admiral Zorf, trying to maintain dignity despite the Red Bull 4 drip attached to his primary tentacle. "We must send a covert research team to these bars to understand the full potential of mixed hydro weapons." "Who would volunteer for such a dangerous mission?" asked Kathrak. The council's doors burst open as Gleep, now promoted to Chief Hydration Officer, zoomed in on a hoverboard made from recycled monster cans. "Me, pick me, I'll go," he shrieked, vibrating at a frequency that disrupted the chamber's gravity stabilizers. 2 Earth weeks later, at a Miami nightclub called Liquid Assets, 5 aliens in impressively unconvincing human costumes approached the bar. "We would like to sample your most potent hydro weapon combinations," announced Gleep, who was wearing a trench coat and 3 hats stacked on top of each other, "for scientific purposes." The bartender, who had seen stranger customers on South Beach, shrugged. "Ladies' night special is bottomless margaritas for $15.99. 4 hours later, the research team was in disarray. Gleep had consumed something called a Jaeger bomb, and was now dancing on the ceiling, literally, thanks to his species' natural adhesive properties. Lieutenant Zorb, disguised as a basketball player, had tried a pina colada, and was now singing karaoke in 17 languages simultaneously, including 3 that hadn't been invented yet. Commander Plink had dissolved his exoskeleton after sampling a sour apple martini, and was now just a sentient puddle wearing sunglasses under the DJ booth. The council received the team's incoherent, slurred transmission at 3 AM Earth time. "Guys," Gleep's hologram wobbled as he attempted to stand straight. "These humans are geniuses. They mix teethy.wadia, call IIT.drinks, with something called alcohol, which is like. Red Bull times a million." Behind him, Lieutenant Zorb could be seen attempting to mate with a neon sign, while Commander Plink had reformed into a shape resembling a cocktail umbrella. "The bartender human told me," Gleep continued, hiccuping tiny wormholes into existence, "that there's something even stronger called moonshine, made in something called bathtubs." The transmission abruptly ended as Gleep apparently noticed a tequila shot challenge happening at the bar. The Galactic Council unanimously voted to classify all Earth beverages as Class X intoxicants and established mandatory rehabilitation centers for affected officials. It was too late. By the end of the Earth month, a black market had emerged. Alien smugglers were making fortunes trafficking White Claw to the Outer Rim planets. Underground speakeasies appeared on space stations, serving contraband Moscow mules to high-ranking diplomats. Meanwhile, on Earth, humans remained oblivious to the interstellar crisis they had created. They were too busy being confused by the sudden alien demand for seemingly random items. "Why do these aliens want all our copper mugs?" asked the bewildered CEO of Crate and Barrel as another shipment was loaded onto an extraterrestrial cargo ship. "And why are they trading antimatter containment technology for lime juicers?" wondered the president of Williams-Sonoma. In his private chambers, Grand Admiral Zorf, now attending mandatory Hydro-Anonymous meetings 3 times a week, reviewed the latest intelligence reports with growing concern. "The humans have developed something called 4-Loco," he whispered to his most trusted advisor. "Initial tests suggest it could destabilize the fabric of reality if consumed by non-terrestrial life forms." His advisor, still recovering from a white Russian bender on Alpha Centauri, nodded gravely. "There are also reports of an underground movement calling themselves mixologists, who are developing increasingly potent combinations." Zorf stared out at the stars, contemplating the bizarre turn of galactic events. "To think we once feared their nuclear weapons when all along their true power was in their beverages." On Earth, a barista at a small Seattle coffee shop had a sudden inspiration. "What if," she mused to herself, "I added a shot of espresso to this new alien beverage they trade us called Quantum Fizz?" Across the galaxy, every psychic species simultaneously screamed in terror, though they couldn't explain why. The cosmic beverage wars had only just begun.